Is an athlete from the day they are born? What about an astronaut or an idol? You can't know what you'll be at birth. Then, what about witches?
Okay, I like this intro. It's very goofily philosophical. It's kind of like when Geto asked Gojo, "Are you the strongest because you're Gojo, or are you Gojo because you're the strongest?" You know, beginning narrator says you can't know what you'll be at birth, but everyone knew Gojo was the honored one.
Our heroine, Coco, stepped onto the shallow water and took in the smell of the fresh air, the sereneness, floating butterfly. Deer watching as she poured detergent into the water and began to work. She apologized to the deer. She was just about to finish with her laundry. The water would go back to normal soon. The spring was touched by magic. The water glowed briefly, and the deer began to drink. Magic was beautiful every time Coco saw it. The world brimmed with magic, an essential and handy miracle. But how it worked was unknown. Witches are the only ones who could cast spells, and ordinary people could only be blessed with it. Not everyone could become a witch. Yet, Coco yearned to become one. She played with her hanging sheets, commanding them to turn into a flying cloak, and the wind pulled them away for real. That's not what she meant. And there, she saw a Pegasus carriage in the sky. She quickly hung her sheet back up, rushing down. She had never seen one land before. She called her mom about it, and opening the door, she wasn't expecting to see Kifri. Coco was gushing to see the women observing the family shop wares. These women were the one who had come by carriage. Her mom told her to stop standing there and help out. Kifri was looking to purchase some smoke-colored fabric, and Coco offered to cut it for him. But before that, she'd ask her mom if she could see the Pegasus carriage after cutting. Her mom scolded her to not even think of messing with the customer's things. But Coco promised she just wanted a look. She'd even stopped saying she wanted to be a witch if she let her. Coco's mom sighed, but accepted as long as she finished early. Coco got to work, measured, and cut, becoming flustered with Kifri staring so close. He observed the sheet, commenting on her great concentration and steady hands. No hesitation in the line. It was cut cleanly. He had no idea this village had such a skilled craftsman as her. He thought this was real magic. She began to flail, saying it was nothing like that at all, and that magic was way more mysterious and sparkly, more valuable and pretty. Something she thought truly to be precious. She was so embarrassed over what she was saying. He could see she liked magic a lot and decided to ask why. Coco detailed a time when she was little and had gone to a festival at the castle. There, she met a witch wearing a mask. Stepping with trepidation downstairs, the witch would stop her to ask if she'd like to buy a magic picture book. Coco loved picture books, but had no idea what magic was then. The witch told her magic was a miracle that made the world more vibrant. A Pegasus carriage that soared through the vast sky, an everlasting spring that preserved crystal clear waters, even the cobblestone beneath Coco's feet lighting up as she walked. It was all magic. Coco lit up, looking at the glowing wand. This moment made her love magic. The witch handed her a book and wand. Her mother was surprised she ended up buying that, considering Coco earlier said she wanted roasted strawberries. Coco explained the whole interaction with exuberance. She wanted to grow up and become a witch who could make the world vibrant. Her mom shut her dream down immediately, telling her she couldn't become a witch unless she was born with magical powers. Ordinary people didn't have what it takes. Coco clenched at these words, but then told her mom to look. The ground shined every time she took a step. Heading back, her mom said maybe if the ground shined all the way back home, then she'd be able to use magic. Of course it didn't, so Coco began to tear up.
This is so sad. I know exactly where the story is going. I'm just predicting now. It's one of those tales where the world tells you you can't be something and you're disheartened, when actually, if you work at it, you probably can. That's where I think it's going. I don't know fully, but that's kind of what's narratively being conveyed here.
And since then, she'd been fond of watching magic and didn't want to let go of her dream. Kifri wanted to hear more, but they'd be interrupted by a tremor. Coco hurried outside, seeing the carriage had tipped over. Finding her friends there, one of them saying they didn't do anything. It fell apart on its own. The other boy called him a liar. The black-haired boy crawled underneath it and hit his head, and the carriage fell over. The customers came out from the inside and were not happy. It was their father's carriage. Coco's mother tried to apologize on the boy's behalf. Then, Kifri offered to fix things. Pulling out his signature hat, Coco gasped as he revealed he was indeed a witch. This is what she had always wanted, to see the exact moment a spell was being cast up close. Unfortunately, he had told her to wait outside to make sure no one looked while he was casting. and to no matter what, not let anyone inside. She wondered why she couldn't watch how it was done. Magic was all over the world, yet normal humans had no idea how it was cast. Witches only knew that secret. She then spotted the boys trying to sneak in, and they ignored her pleas telling them to stop. Instead, she told them to move aside. She also wanted to peek in, but it was completely covered even from the window. The boys got bored and gave up, but then the wind would blow strongly, forcing her to go in. She'd fight herself, trying to stop herself from seeing, but inevitably watched. Kifri drew all over the carriage tablet, with precise markings using a magic pen. Coco now realized spells weren't something you cast with the wand, but instead, something you drew. Kifri told her he was done, and he'd find her panting and out of breath outside the door. The carriage took off with no issues. By the end of it, Coco's mother expressed her relief. She knew her daughter loved magic so much. She worried Coco would say she wanted to go with that witch. The mother lost her husband to illness, so if Coco left her too, she wouldn't know what to do. Coco told her she wouldn't and gave her mother a hug. That night, Coco's mother's worries rang in her mind. She pulled out the wand the witch had given her when she was young and uncapped the tip to see the magic pen. She opened the magic book and saw the patterns drawn all over. Now realizing the wand wasn't just a bonus that came with it, she uncapped the scepter. It was ink and began to draw onto the paper. She'd quickly get bummed out with nothing happening, but when an ink drop connected the final lines, the image lifted in spectacular light, shooting small fireworks before her. She began to hop up and down. She could finally use magic. She moved all over the room, hardly able to contain her excitement. She drew more into the night. Not knowing where Kifri was camping out, Coco's story about the book bothered him. He jolted up when he realized. Coco, meanwhile, had to put out a fire she started, but she was already getting the hang of drawing from the book. Bigger drawings were stronger than smaller ones, and neatly drawn ones lasted longer than sloppy ones. Drawing big and neat was hard. This gave her a great idea. She put a page over to trace. That way, she could draw with neat precision. Finishing her spell, Kifri caught her just in time and dipped out of the house, asking with intense desperation what spell she had just drawn. She didn't know, but screamed out because her mom was in danger due to the explosive light. The ice began to encompass their home, and she shouted at her mom to run. But it was too late. She was completely frozen by forbidden magic. Coco hit Kifri, telling him to let go, but he couldn't because she'd get caught up in it too. She freed herself and free fell, getting caught barely by him, screaming for her mother, but unable to reach. Kifri got them out of danger again, and she wept, saying sorry over and over. He told her, of course she didn't mean to do this. Magic was kept a secret so nothing like this would happen. A special ink and a set of casting spells. It was the one great rule of witches, and now that she's found out, he had to erase her memories.
Guys, I know I'm breaking the tension here, but I just want to say this guy basically looks like Wizard Gojo. Has anyone else seen this?
She screamed out and begged him not to, but unfortunately, he had to. Coco kept talking, saying she knew what was written in the picture book by heart, and now Kifri was reminded he needed Coco's memories to trace who gave her the book. All they needed to do was to find another copy of the book, and then maybe they could save her mother. He asked her to keep a secret and offered to teach her, but once she knew the truth, it couldn't be undone. This would allow her to keep her memories, and from this point, she would become a witch. Which one of you guys hasn't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet? Because here on my Shoujo Weekly, I'm covering all the incredible stories that are fun and exciting. Don't have a YouTube account? Well, you better make one or else I'll cast a curse on you. Ooh. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. Coco woke up to the sound of the wind. Kifri was stretching, explaining he had gotten them a Pegasus carriage. He was concerned flying so high must have been cold on her pajamas, but they'd be there soon. He'd point out the window, and she stared in awe at his atelier and the school where she'd be learning at. On foot, Kifri let Coco know he planted guard briar seeds around her house. They'd grow and act as a barrier. Her house was petrified by an unknown spell, so it'd keep people from getting too close. Wizard Gojo turned to see she was upset, and she wept, saying she had promised her mom she wouldn't leave her by herself. Well, she messed that up. Kifri would comfort her, telling her not to be hard on herself. She just didn't know what she was doing. He turned on the lights, telling her to let all her tears out and look ahead. He was quite optimistic about this being her home starting today, and handed her a water orb. She was confused with him casually telling her what it was. However, he only thought about how she needed a change of clothes. and disappeared before she could ask how to use it. Tetia told her not to be afraid. It wasn't a difficult kind of magic to handle, and offered to teach her. The device was apparently called a vapor bubble, a magic that pulled water out of the moisture in the air. Tetia took it and poured, basically like it was a kettle, and with Coco telling her thank you, Tetia lit up. She loved being told thank you, and thanked her back. They began thanking each other too much, and that's when Richie told Coco to just ignore her if she was being too much. Tetia thought Richie was being too mean. She was just trying to help. Coco spotted Richie holding a basket with magic pen and ink, learning the two girls were apprentices under Master Kifri. Oh my god, he really is basically Wizard Gojo. Tetia was somewhat confused, wondering if Coco wasn't a student as well. Coco didn't think of herself as a student just yet. Yesterday was the first time she ever drew a spell. The other two were taken aback, recognizing she was the one who did it. There was a rumor going around about an outsider who used forbidden magic, that they were allowed to become an apprentice with their memories intact. The ominous words were broken by Kifri calling to Coco. He was glad they all got acquainted and told Richie and Tetia to go study in their rooms after helping with the morning chores. He then offered Coco her new clothes. It was what his students wore. He promised to explain it all. With her dressed, he began to tell the story of magic. Long ago, magic wasn't something special. All you needed was a combination of known patterns and specially made ink. However, it sparked conflict time and time again. When humans are given the power to do anything is just what they will do. And so, many horrific spells were created. The few people who still had a conscience turned from conflict and unified as witches to take other people's memories of magic, entrusting the secret only to disciples sworn to protect it. That was the day of the pact. Ever since then, people have been made to believe that magic is a power only a chosen few can wield. If the truth were to spread, the world would collapse into lawlessness once again. Coco apologized for bringing this on herself and asked what forbidden magic was. Kifri said it was magic that was drawn during the age of conflict and banned when the day of the pact came. It was magic for hurting others. Coco ran to him, begging to be taught, to teach her all about magic that she wasn't supposed to use. She was too scared to do anything she didn't know about. He leaned down with gentleness. This was where he usually told his students not to rush things, but he had a harder time not telling her. He'd allow her to follow. As he explained, there were countless forbidden spells, but it was simple when boiled down. Any spell cast directly upon the human body was prohibited under all circumstances. This included transformation, age alteration, teleportation without doors, or conveyances, as well as the manipulation of thoughts or emotions, the harming of others, or even healing them. One exception though, memory erasure. Most spells were cast on tools like carriages or lamps, or the window in front of them that lets them access a distant location. This was called a windowway. It connected two round windows that bear the same pattern. The tower afar was called the Tower of Tomes. To preserve knowledge, all books related to magic were duplicated there the moment they were written. Coco grew anxious. She wanted to go there right now. She wouldn't be able to sleep until she found a copy of the book. Kifri told her to hold it. The sea serpent in front of them would whip its tail, splashing them intensely. He called it the Librarian's Trial. The Tower of Tomes was protected by 4 librarians, and only witches who overcame it were allowed to enter. Coco would need to study in order to enter. It made Kifri happy earlier when she expressed how eager she was to learn. It was natural to feel fear, but spells that weren't forbidden were those that could bring happiness to them all. With the window now bringing in a flurry of white flower petals, he told her to perhaps learn gentler spells. That's how he felt. And from then on, she called him Master Kifri. Reaching her room, he knocked, but her roommate wasn't around. The two of them would share this workspace. She'd have her own bedroom though. After leaving her, he'd send a message thanking someone for allowing him to take Coco as an apprentice. He decided not to get info about the picture book for now, since she seemed too overwhelmed. Okay, all the Gojo comparisons aside, I really like his personality. He's gentle, thoughtful, and passionate about magic, having a view on it that seems to guide him. Coco was about to grab a pen, but would be stopped by a stern child's voice telling her, "That's my side of the desk." Above flew in a beautiful girl, aloof expression, telling Coco to move so she could land. Coco introduced herself to her roommate, Agate Arklum, and Agate cut her off. She already knew Coco was the outsider everyone was talking about. She maintained her cold expression while saying she was sorry about Coco's mother, but because of what she had done, her mother would never return to being human. She told Coco they'd been drawing casting seals their whole lives until their fingertips turned black. They worked and worked until they passed the tests and were only then allowed to become apprentices. To her, Coco was an ordinary girl who knew nothing, and Agate thought she in no way could become a witch. Coco told her she could, but before they could argue, Tetia burst in saying it was dinner time. Coco got embarrassed by the sound of her rumbling stomach. Riche was irritated by the same meal as usual. Tetia asked, "What about the welcome party?" And Kifri said it was so last minute, they'd have to do it later. Learning Agate was eating in her room, he wished she'd joined them once in a while. The meal was great, but that evening, Coco cried herself to sleep over her mother. The next day, she thought over what she needed to do and got jump scared by Kifri. He told her there were lots of things books didn't tell you when it came to magic, and she would learn more from doing rather than reading. He presented her components, tools to draw magic, and she was so excited. She got scared holding a pen again, but had resolved to save her mother, no matter what. The lesson began, and apparently was too much for her. Kifri offered a break, but since she said she could handle it, he told her to try explaining what she learned. Coco detailed a spell was composed of 3 elements. The sigil was in the center, surrounded by lines called signs. The outer circle that completes it was called the ring. The types of sigils were fire, water, light, and wind. They determine what kind of magic it becomes. The signs determine what form the magic takes, as well as its size and direction. Lastly, when the outer ring is completed, that locks the seal into place and activates the spell. Coco was barely keeping up with just memorizing everything. Hearing her determination, Kifri liked her spirit. She crumpled her paper because it was sloppy, but he told her not to throw it away. She begged him not to look at it because it was so wobbly and messy, and he told her of course it was. She was just learning, but there was something else she needed to pay attention to. The fact her ring wasn't connected. A spell wouldn't activate unless it did. He lifted her hand, telling her it was natural to be unsteady when you're learning how to use a new tool. She was like a newborn foal, just learning to stand, and would soon get used to it and be running around freely in no time. He had her connect the line, and it shot water straight at Agate. Coco felt so bad, especially because she ruined Agate's circle and tried to dry it off by flapping her uniform. She's so goofy. Agate maintained her composure and asked to see the casting seal Coco drew. She pointed out the problem. One sign was longer than the rest. It amplified pressure in one direction, causing water to gush out. Kifri complimented Agate's on-point observation. He could leave Coco in her care. For the next 2 or 3 days, he'd be gone visiting the Great Hall and told Agate to look after her. Coco apologized to Agate once more, but she told her to stop. She already said she wasn't bothered by it. She reminded Coco she said she was going to prove herself. So from here on out, no more cushy little lessons. The real test starts now. Kifri would pass through the windowway into a stormy place. He jumped down through a mysterious tower and suddenly get pulled back. A woman telling him, what's the point of having a stairway when no one ever uses it? Elira thought it had been a long time since he'd come to the seabed and referred to him as the problem child of the Great Hall. Hearing about his new apprentice, she was sure he'd been stirring up trouble again. With her mentioning Coco might have a connection to the brimmed caps, Kifri froze in place. No one's used forbidden magic for 4 years. That's not why he was here though. Coco hadn't taken her tests yet, so she wasn't his official apprentice yet. But the test at this time of year was so difficult, it could get her killed. That was why he didn't want her to take it yet. In front of the windowway, Coco asked Agate if she was sure she should be doing this, since Master Kifri wasn't with them. Agate told her she'd be taking the Dada range test alone at some point anyway. Agate herself passed it when she was 10. They all had to pass it to become apprentices, so Coco was in the same boat. The first test was Consent of the Crown. Participants could only take 3 contraptions and their components, and reach the summit of the Dada range purely on their own power to pick the diadem herb that grows there. Agate handed her a guidance orb that pointed the way there, and a vapor bubble for drinking water. But in addition, Coco wanted some shoes as well, the same contraptions as Agate's and Kifri's. She saw the soles glow when Agate was flying around, and thought maybe she could borrow a pair. She got flustered and told Agate to forget. Maybe she was asking for too much. Agate sighed and handed Coco hers right off her feet, then shoved her through the portal. That's when Agate told her she forgot to mention, but she could only take this test once. Failing meant she could never become an apprentice, and she'd have to leave the atelier too. Jeez. Coco suddenly became terrified, but she had to do her best. She lifted the guiding orb, and the pin on the inside began to tap in a direction. She began to make her way, and tripped instantly, face into a spiderweb, stumbling all the way, but thought that if Agate did this when she was 10, she could too. Her jaw dropped, coming across an area with the floating orb lands. She'd see the guiding orb was pointing up. That's where she had to go. She didn't realize her destination would be in the sky. Seeing a bird flying, that's when she remembered her shoes. But even shouting, "Fly!" they didn't do anything. She examined them closer to see the casting seal was split between the right and left foot. Getting them perfectly aligned, they let off a green glow, and Coco found herself flying. But after a bit, she'd fall back into a bush. She thought Kifri was right. She was like a newborn foal stumbling around. She'd try again and launch herself like a badly thrown football. She just needed more time to get used to it. Meanwhile, back where the seabed was, Kifri would be submitting an application paper. Elira told him he wouldn't have to travel so far for every little thing if he just relocated here. He could even bring his students. He responded that where he lived had everything he needed, which is why he only came here when he needed things. She could see his hatred for the Great Hall ran deep and warned him to keep an eye on his students, because who knows what children got up to at their age without adults. Exactly what Coco was doing right now. She thought she was getting better footing, but found herself still constantly crashing into things when ascending up. She'd hang on barely by a branch, and would spot a cute little furry worm in front of her. It slithered on and wiped its tail on her, only for the both of them to get startled and quickly fall into water below. The little guy was known as a brush buddy. Coco had never seen one in person before. Exiting the pond, it followed behind her with the guidance orb. Coco wasn't too happy that her shoes were caked with mud. Wiping them off, she'd shriek, seeing the casting seal came off. She wanted to draw it back on, but the conjuring ink spilled in her bag. She didn't know what to do. Back at the atelier, Tetia asked Agate where Coco was, since it was time for dinner. She'd freak out, learning Coco was at the Dada range when she had just got here. Agate explained most got here only after taking the test, and if she couldn't pass a test that simple, she shouldn't be an apprentice. Agate hated people who couldn't do what she did. She gained no benefit being around them, especially outsiders. She told Tetia not to worry, believing Coco would fail and come back soon. The Dada range was at its highest this time of year. She wouldn't be able to fly with just the sylph shoes. Agate really didn't want someone here who didn't understand just how dangerous this world was. Coco was still having no luck ascending, even after drawing the casting seal back on with what little ink she had. She couldn't even float now. She then considered the idea of drawing the seals directly on the soles of her feet, but decided against it. Magic drawn on the body was forbidden. She didn't know what kind of magic she should use at a time like this. She wondered if Agate was right. Anyone could draw a spell, but that didn't mean they'd be good at it. Maybe you had to be a special kind of person to be a witch after all. They'd all been drawing spells since they were children. That's when she first remembered her mother teaching her about tailoring work. She stumbled and failed over and over, but eventually her work was fine enough to be praised by Kifri. She realized she indeed had her own magic. She'd cut fabric, wrap it around a rock, soak it, and begin to draw on her cape. The thought of both her mother and Kifri guiding her. Her fingers began to dance of their own accord, freely. That morning, she tied her sail and greeted her little brush buddy. Her seal was pretty ugly, considering a proper one needed the sigil to be centered, and the signs were supposed to be uniform. She was taught that if the signs weren't balanced, it could put too much energy into one direction. She wanted to see what would happen if she made one long on purpose. The brush buddy would climb up through her clothes. She was happy to see it wanted to come with her. She'd complete the seal, and her boat would take off at a rapid pace, the cape snapping off and her holding onto it to fly instead. She was elated to be flying with her own spell, a real cloak of light. It was like a dream. She'd glance down, seeing a grassy orb that reminded her of home. She never thought helping her mom would help her learn magic, but the diadem herb was higher than this. She flew further, and eventually attempted to grab some, the thoughts of her mother driving her, until she succeeded. Kifri began to panic, hearing from Tetia that Coco was at the Dada range by herself. She'd definitely fail if he saved her, but it was too soon for her to take that test anyway. She hadn't spent her whole life around magic like the rest of them. However, upon turning the windowway to the testing location, they'd find Coco walking back with the herb. Tetia gave her a big hug, and Coco showed Agate her consent of the crown. Agate simply stared at it and walked away. Kifri would tell Coco it was dangerous to cast spells without the proper preparation and fundamental knowledge. He was worried she could have died back there. He told her she didn't need to put herself in danger to prove anything. She was already his apprentice. He handed her what he had gone to get, her proof that she was a witch. The uniform represented a shackle atop their heads to remind them they should never abuse magic. He told her to take good care of it. But back at the range, the mysterious mage uttered, "The seed has sprouted." Water, the life-granting, nourishing force. Earth the power to transform sand to stone, and vice versa, enabling transformation and movement. Fire, humanity's sword and shield. And air, or levitation, that which frees them to visit distant realms. These 4 elements are known as the primary tetrad, but everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. I'm just playing. Kifri is teaching Coco and Tetia about them for today's lesson. Coco got a little frantic with the fire, and Tetia had to put it out. She was drawing the Pyreball spell as a part of her levitation magic practice. Kifri explained that the sigil of fire dealt with formless phenomena, so it was dangerous if not maintained at just the right size and balance. Tetia was quizzical. She'd fly up, as she brought up the assumption Coco had already mastered levitation magic at Dada range. She'd fly all around, zooming all over the place. But of course, Coco ended up ruining the sylph shoes Agate lent her at the time. She wanted to fix them up before returning them. She's finished everything except the casting seal on the soles, because her lines kept coming out wobbly. Kifri considered the idea that the pen Coco was using wasn't right for her. Different people needed different weights and grips, and this was one of his old ones. With him mentioning they should let her pick out a new one, Tetia got excited, telling her they should go to the Magic Stationers. This was the art supply store. A total dream place for Coco. Kifri and the girls would fly off together until they reached Calm, the township of the Marshwoods. It's also the closest witches' town to where the atelier was. They'd descend, and Coco marveled over the various witches conversing all over town. To protect the city from moleworms in the marshwoods on the far bank, the witches built part of the sandbar into an island to support a watchtower. They eventually gathered here, and it grew into an atelier town. But Coco wasn't even listening to Kifri's explanation. Agate would ruin the mood by saying she had better things to do than play the tour guide for Coco. And so, she went off on her own. Coco wished the two of them could be closer. The gang would eventually reach the Magic Stationer's shop, called the Starry Sword. Inside, Coco would stare at the large trunk of a tree with a staircase wrapping around. The shop owner, Nonoa, was surprised to see a witch's apprentice wonderstruck by it. The silver tree was quite an elementary concept in their world. When Kifri explained, the man was intrigued, because Coco was the famous troublemaker. He apologized and laughed it off, and told her all the components here were made by him and his grandson, Tartar. He'd get to work making ink. The silverwood branches turned black when they died. It was a toxic state to both the tree and to humans, but once dissolved in water and the excess strained, it produces crude conjuring ink, the source of all magic. Magic ink is produced from Krur, or the literal blood of the tree. Thus, silverwood is an extremely important tree to witches. It was the only tree they could extract ink from. Legend says that long ago, a silverwood tree fell in love with a witch. It offered its blood to be ink, and its branches to be wands. Nonoa would hand her a vial of ink and tell her to go pick out a pen. Heading downstairs though, she'd spot the mysterious witch from her childhood, staring from outside the window, and sprint after her. Tetia and Riche decided to go after her because she'd get lost on her own. Coco brushed past Agate, and now she was roped in on this too. The chase was on. Different alleys, paths. The girls would eventually enter smoke, leaving the little brush buddy behind. When they caught up to Coco, she'd tell them that was the witch who gave her the forbidden magic book. But now, where they were was completely different. They realized they weren't in Kaln anymore. They were teleported without realizing it. Another form of forbidden magic. Tetia got scared after flying around. They really weren't in town anymore. The mysterious witch had no business with the others, but with the appearance of a dragon in front of them, this was the witch's welcome gift to Coco. A welcome to the world of magic. She believed Coco was their hope. Meanwhile, Kifri was completely clueless as to where his apprentices went. I don't even know how he could lose track of them this badly. Tarta apparently saw them running after a strangely dressed witch, one who had a mask that looked like an eyeball. Kifri felt a shiver. In the face of the fearsome beast, Agate told Coco to maintain eye contact and back up slowly. Once they were far enough away, she'd give the word to run with all their might. The crew did just that, and another chase was on. Agate would make a swift turnabout midway and shoot an enormous flame spell, giving them another chance to run with the beast distracted. Coco was amazed. The spell was a result of the sigil of fire being surrounded by the sign of spiraling wind. Agate had that spell drawn in advance in case of emergency. Coco kept fawning over how cool it was, but this was hardly the time. Bad news. They'd reach a dead end. The dragon was skulking by. Tetia began having a mental breakdown, but Agate kept her calm. Her next plan was to use a wall breaker spell for them to escape through, while Richie and Tetia would buy them time. But Coco saw it in Tetia's eyes earlier. She blamed Coco for this, and she was justified. Tetia would use a spell to send her uniform flying and distract the beast. Glancing at a distance, Coco would spot an intriguing casting seal and try to tell Agate about it, unfortunately ruining what Agate was drawing. Now she was pissed. Sure, Coco didn't mean it, just like she didn't mean to turn her mother into stone and put them in danger. But it was still all Coco's fault. She told Coco to get it through her head how ignorant she was and just stop doing anything. Agate didn't have time to start over, but luckily, Rishi finished. They were saved. Coco was once again at a loss, wondering what Kifri would tell her to do in a situation like this. At the same time, he was trying to find them. No luck whatsoever. He didn't expect the brimmed caps to make contact themselves. They were a dangerous faction that wore hats from a bygone era, hiding their faces behind masks. He thought Coco would be able to give clues to their whereabouts, but he never considered they might come after her. I feel like this is a stupid line of thinking. One gave her a forbidden book. You think they just handed those out for free? The brush buddy would tug on Kifri's cape, and picking it up, the little thing would lead Kifri where it lost them. Now rushing his way, Kifri could only hope his students were safe. How will things turn out? Subscribe to keep up with next week's exciting part. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.